Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar where we're going to be discussing beating burnout and how AI powered radiology solutions can help.
Text, Beating Burnout, How AI-Powered Radiology Solutions Can Help. April 12, 2023. 3M Imaging Virtual Pulse Webinar Series.
Before we get started, we have a great panel of speakers today. I'm just going to go over a couple housekeeping items. This is a web-based platform, so if you are joining us today, we do recommend that you use Google Chrome, close out a VPN or multiple tabs. That'll help with your bandwidth. If you are having any speaker setting issues, do a quick refresh and that should help clear out your cache, and that would resolve any of your audio issues. With this engagement tool, we have a lot of different sections that you can make bigger or smaller. And with that, we have a media player that does offer closed captioning. So if you do need that, that is available. We do encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar, so please put those in the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. And in our resources section, we do have a certificate of attendance that you can request CEUs with, as well as some other resources about our solutions. And I believe there's an e-guide in there as well. And then at the end, we always appreciate to know how we did. So if you can complete the survey at the end of the webinar, please let us know and give us some feedback.
At the bottom of a page is a legal disclaimer that says the information presented here is believed to be reliable, but the accuracy and completeness is not guaranteed and one should apply one's own judgment. 3M disclaims all responsibility for any use made of the information. No license is granted. 3M will not use your personal information and this meeting may be recorded.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce to you Russ Cardwell, our VP of Sales here at 3M, and he'll introduce our speakers as well as go over today's agenda. Russ?
The three speakers each have video windows in the upper left corner. Slides are shown on screen.
Thank you, Lisa. And we're delighted to talk about this topic, beating burnout and how AI-powered solutions can help. We're delighted to have our guests here, Dr. Casey Schmitz, neuroradiologist and AI leader from Inland Imaging. I'll kind of let you read more about his background there as well.
Text. Dr. Casey Schmitz is a practicing neuroradiologist and the physician lead for AI and Inland Imaging, a large, independent private practice radiology group in the Pacific Northwest. He participates in numerous committees, including serving as the medical staff president for a local community medical center. Dr. Schmitz also has a spine intervention practice and holds the title of medical director for an outpatient imaging center. As such, he understands the challenges of providing excellent medical care while working with hospital partners and being mindful of budget constraints.
We also have Josh Duncan, who is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for RadAI.
Josh Duncan is the Senior Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Success at RadAI. Prior to joining RadAI, he helped lead the successful commercial efforts of multiple early-stage healthcare companies. Josh has overseen the breakneck growth of RadAI to over 70 partnerships in less than 2 years, bringing his dynamic brand of leadership to the helm. He has a bachelor's from Texas A&M University and an MBA from LSU Shreveport.
His company is part of the solution here that we'll get to, but again, very delighted to have these gentlemen with us today. So first, I just want to frame sort of the problem. I think a lot of us have heard about it. It's been as a topic for a little while now, but just to reframe it, there's ACR, the American College of Radiology, has published information about its membership. And basically, they've had about 3,000 full-time radiologists drop out of their pool over the period from the end of 2020 to the 2022. So it's been a pretty big drop there. And at the same time, a marketing leader who was quoted in an ITN article following RSNA 2022 said there's a significant increase in volume. So you have this decrease in radiologists, yet this increasing patient volume, and no doubt is leading to the burnout topic. So first, Josh, I just want to give you a question. Obviously, I'm guessing you've noticed this problem for some time. Can you talk about what RadAI is doing to address this problem?
Yeah, I mean, Russ, I couldn't agree with you more. I think burnout is a real problem. I mean, just this past February, the American Medical Association released a report that showed that 63% of all physicians in the U.S. were experiencing burnout. And we know that this problem is even more pervasive amongst radiologists. So in the Ant-Mania Awards that we all look forward to, the past 4 years, the biggest threat to radiology has been burnout. And it's not a burnout problem, it's a burnout epidemic. And so at RadAI, for us, we are the market leader in non-interpretive operational AI. And a huge component of every design decision we make is how do you keep both physician and radiologist and patient in the front and center of design. And so if you are aware of what's going on with physician burnout, what's going to drive you in a lot of design decisions is how does this reduce friction? How does this reduce the cognitive burden of that physician? And so when I think about all of our solutions, Rad AI Omni, which is an AI solution for automated impressions, we created that category. Continuity, which is an AI-driven care coordination platform, and then Nexus, which is a truly smart AI-enabled dynamic work list. A component of all three of those solutions are how do we reduce burnout and how do we create IT solutions that work for the physician, not against them.
Well, that's a great summary there, Josh. So just to kind of build upon that, we at 3M, we have a solution called Fluency for Imaging, which is a speech recognition solution. It's been rated best in class 3 of the last 4 years. And it has taken our engineers literally almost a dozen years to continue to perfect the algorithm to deliver correct speech to text, which is one part of the solution, right? If you get the right words down, that certainly helps the radiologist speed through their work and they don't have to go back and do corrections. And in fact, Dr. Schmitz's group, Inland Imaging, was a pioneer of this back in 2013. They began using the solution. But again, lots of different user author profile types to try to work through, as you might imagine. So one other thing I want to reference is a statistic that the AMIA published several years ago. Approximately 36% of pulmonary nodules that were documented in the findings section of a radiology report were not carried over to the impression section. And this is a problem because it's been sort of well documented that referring physicians don't always read the entire report, they just read the impression section. And so that would mean a risk of not ordering the appropriate follow-up for those types of reports where the findings don't match, the significant findings don't match the impression. So Josh, again, I want to direct the question back to you. How does the Rad AI team handle the responsibility to deliver prioritized clinical relevant impressions, knowing that is all that many referring physicians will read?
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. And what we want to do is make sure that we put the radiologist in a position to review the impression and then improve it and then move on to the next study, given the massive demand for imaging. And so Rad AI Omni, our AI solution for automated impressions, it's been trained on 250 million reports. It's a massive data set, which drives its high degree of clinical accuracy. And it's really interesting. I was thinking this morning, one of the first webinars that we did at Rad AI in our AI in Practice webinar series was with Dr. Jason Poff, who also uses Rad AI Omni and Fluency. And one of the things that he said when he was talking about Rad AI Omni is that he looks at it as an AI assistant, because which radiologist with this massive exam volume hasn't ever forgotten or hasn't ever misremembered of bringing down a significant incidental finding into the impression? And he loves Omni because it ensures that he does it consistently time after time. And so that's been a big driving focus for us, Russ, in both increasing the efficiency of the radiologist, but also increasing report accuracy. So we're really focused on it, and it's really helped us drive the development of our second platform, which is Continuity, which is a care coordination platform that's taking it one step further.
But that's great. Improving speed and quality is critical and to address this burnout topic. All right, so I'm going to shift to Dr. Schmitz now for a question for you, which is, when did you become the physician IT lead at Inland, and did the Inland board give you direction as it relates to trying to reduce this burnout topic, which I'm guessing your group is feeling as well?
Yeah, sure. So I became the AI physician lead for Inland Imaging, which, for those who are unfamiliar, Inland Imaging, we're a large private practice group throughout the Pacific Northwest. So we're well over 100 radiologists at this point. And so back in 2019, it became clear to the group that there were some things that were changing in the radiology landscape that it was important for us to sort of keep up with and be at the forefront. And one of those things is at the time, there was this just explosion of AI in radiology. And like most groups, we didn't really know what to do with all of that. And so our board met and we decided to form a work group centered around adoption of artificial intelligence in radiology, and I was appointed the physician lead back in 2019, and sort of was just tasked with go out, learn as much as you can, evaluate the marketplace, see what solutions are out there, and determine whether or not we think any of those could move the needle for inland.
Yeah, and so just to kind of follow up on that, I'm guessing, do you regularly hear from your other radiologists, the other 99 or so, about this topic of burnout, or did you hear it when you were kind of going through this assessment back in that 2020 timeframe?
Yeah, it's, as you guys have already alluded to, radiology is a unique profession in which right now we're making the delta of needed radiologists is getting higher, right? We need more and more radiologists every year, and we're making more and more work every year. And so it's creating this problem where we have fewer people to do more work. And so the issue with burnout has been ongoing for years, and it's just getting worse as time goes on. And so, of course, every practicing radiologist is very familiar with this. We all know what's going on. We all know, we experience it. We feel it every day when we're working. And so that was one of the things when we were going through and looking at AI solutions is, yeah, of course, when you're looking from a business standpoint, you want things that generate an ROI. And from a patient care standpoint, you want things that are going to improve your outcomes and sensitivities and specificities. But from our standpoint, that's the important third piece, is something that's going to make our workday a little bit easier, make it so that we feel a little less burned out at the end of the day.
Text discussion.
Yeah, that sounds right. So Josh, I know you spoke a little bit about the Omni solution and the auto impression generation. Can you speak a little bit more about some of the demand you've seen from your customer base, and just a little bit about how someone goes about the acquiring and what the implementation is like regarding the Omni solution?
Yeah, so Russ, it's really amazing. We are the fastest growing radiology AI startup, and I think it really is large in part to Omni and the value that it's driving for radiology practices. So we'll be over 100 partnerships by this summer. And at this point, it's not a question of if your practice will use Omni, it's when you'll make the decision to do it. And clearly, Dr. Schmitz and the entire Inland Imaging team, they were one of the earliest adopters of Omni and have been great in terms of the feedback that they've given to us to better the product. And so for those practices who aren't using Omni today, the best way is just to reach out to our team. Or if you don't want to reach out to a salesperson, hit our website, radii.com, learn about it through the website, see the testimonials, see radiologists who talk about that this is the only AI solution that they couldn't live without, and learn more there. And then when you're ready, reach out to us and demo the product. Or, we're very, very proud to have a partnership with 3M, Russ. So, clearly those practices that see the incredible benefit from Fluency can reach out and learn how they can also use Omni as well.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Josh, and a good segue to my next question for Dr. Schmitz, which is, can you talk about your experience and how the Fluency for Imaging speech reporting solution works with the Omni solution?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, so let's talk about Fluency for Imaging first. Our group loves Fluency for the speech, the voice recognition software and the application in radiology. It makes our workday a little bit easier, right? I mean, the days of old prose speech reports largely are gone. Most people are not doing that anymore because you realize so much of an efficiency gain when you build out your templates and your macros so that, every time you open a study, it auto-populates that specific report. It just speeds you up a lot. And then the voice recognition software is fantastic with Fluency for Imaging. So very rarely do I have to go and correct voice transcription mistakes. And then when you add Radii Omni, the integration is seamless. I don't have to do anything on my end. It's a little widget that's on the desktop. It integrates seamlessly. So all I have to do is after I dictate my report, I click down to the impression field, and within a second or two, I've got my impression. So as far as the integration and how they work together, it's totally seamless and requires absolutely nothing on my part.
Yeah, and I agree. It is beautiful to see it. Watch how quickly it can happen. That impression generation get created. Can you speak about, again, being the physician lead, and I'm sure you were part of some initial group of users, but just how the implementation went for such a large group such as Inland? Like, how did it, were you a super user, and how did it evolve from there to get across the practice?
Yeah, I was actually a super user. When we were initially evaluating it and we were using it, we had a small group of radiologists that used it initially. And I was one of those radiologists, and it's interesting. So when my initial first impression at the time was not fantastic with RadAI. I was not super pleased. Of course, like most radiologists, we're a little bit particular in the vernacular that we use. We all think we say things the right way, and everybody else who doesn't say it my way says it wrong. And so that initial try, when I was using it those first days to weeks, I was using sort of a generic model with RadAI, and so it didn't really have my specific language yet. And so I was constantly providing this feedback to RadAI that, hey, this is not my language. This is not what I would say. And I'm having to heavily edit these reports. And well, sure enough, they took my feedback, and within a couple of weeks, they had the next iteration, which was modeled after my language and the way I phrase things. And I vividly remember thinking at the time that this is creepy. It's like it's in my head and knows exactly what I'm going to say. I mean, word for word, the exact same that I would say it. And once that happened, of course, I changed my tune and was like, yeah, this thing is fantastic. We need this. And then, we got similar feedback from the other radiologists. And so what happened is, we had planned to kind of go slowly and see how people like it. And we got such positive, overwhelmingly positive feedback that we very quickly decided we just need to roll this out to the entire group and let everybody start to enjoy the benefits.
Yeah, I've heard that when there's a batch of your prior reports, that's how it becomes so customized to you when you see it work in real time. And so it really is amazing. So I'm glad that was your experience, and to hear that your super user feedback was reacted to so quickly. Since you were a pioneer of this and on the early adoption curve of this, what would you say to a new group today who's considering it, and any best practices you might share as they consider a solution like Omni?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what I would say is, if there are radiology groups out there that are considering it, they should reach out to Josh. They should reach out. It is something that my group has, we've been using it for a few years now. And, I can tell you that we don't want to go back to not using RadAI Omni. I mean, our radiologists have just gotten so used to using it and enjoy it so much that I hear that feedback all the time. I do not want to go back to not using RadAI Omni. So in terms of the implementation, the rollout, I mean, the RadAI team is so good at that stuff that it was very seamless. It was very little IT lift. I mean, it was a piece of cake, frankly. And, now that we have it, of course, we're not going back to without it. So.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that from a few customers, not just Inland here. So great to hear that. In regards to, I know Josh has in the past commented that in general, a radiologist can save 1 hour per shift as a result of the impression software working, just because it's so fast and accurate. How does that compare to your experience, and what would you say to our audience about kind of what they might expect with regard to time savings and efficiency?
Sure. That's a difficult question to answer. We've never tracked, to the minute how much time the average radiologist is saving. It sort of depends a bit on your specialty, your subspecialty within radiology and the complexity of the cases that you're dictating. And, if you're somebody who's reading a bunch of negative studies, it doesn't help as much. It's not as, it's not as impactful. But a lot of us, like as a neuroradiologist, I mean, I'm reading spine MRI, and those are not negative studies, and the bullet point impressions are often 6-7 points long. And I'm not exaggerating when I say more often than not, it drops down, it generates my impression that's 6-7 bullet points long, and I just say sign report. So the time savings is incremental through the day is significant. Now, I don't know the exact number, but it's significant.
Yeah, and I've heard that from other users as well. So it's good to hear your experience, even if you haven't tracked it per minute or per hour. It's significant is really good to hear. So in addition to like maybe just the hard metrics like time savings, can you talk about any soft benefits that have come along with it too? Certainly there's some benefit there too.
Yeah, well, we touched on it earlier. So, when you're looking at these AI solutions, one of the things is the hard benefit ROI. Is this generating a return for us? Does it make us more efficient so that we can read more and generate more return on it, which Red AI does. Then there's the other side, which we talked about earlier, which is burnout, right? And this sort of like overwhelming, crushing work volume that is coming through that we have less people to deal with. And what we've seen in our group is people get to the end of the day, and I can speak to it myself. I get to the end of the day and I'm just less worn down. I'm less fatigued. I have more energy. And why exactly that is, I suspect it's because I just have to say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds fewer words every single day because it's generating my impression for me. So on that example, using the spine MRIs, I don't have to say the same thing in the body and then say it again in the impression because it's doing it for me. It's generating that for me. So at the end of the day, we just have so much, I just have so much more energy at the end of the day. I feel so much less sort of beat down and fatigued. And I can give an example. So with our group, early on in the adoption of Rad AI Omni, we had a server issue that caused, we had to go onto our backup system. And it was short-lived, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour or something. And we had to go onto our backup system, and Rad AI Omni was not available. And I can't tell you, I probably got 10 calls in the first 5 minutes from partners saying, what the heck is going on? Why don't I have Rad AI Omni? Because they have you get so quickly, you get so used to having that there, and it provides such a benefit with the intangibles like burnout that people noticed immediately that they didn't have it and were calling asking, when are we going to have it back? So I think that speaks to those sort of like soft metrics that we're talking about.
Definitely. Yeah. And again, I think it's important to note, I think it's important to note some of these soft metrics. Again, this burnout topic affects our ability and how we react and interact with others. So I think that's just as important as the hard metrics like time savings and ROI metrics. So thanks for sharing that. Josh, back to you. I mean, just a question in terms, we've heard Dr. Schmitz share a lot of great outcomes from Inland. You have, a number of customers, and I would just like to get a sense from you. How does Dr. Schmitz's feedback compare to some of the other feedback you've gotten from your other customers using Omni?
Yeah, Russ, it mirrors the common themes that we hear really amongst all of our practice partners. It doesn't matter if you're a 19 radiology practice in West Virginia, if you're a 2 radiology practice in Victoria, Texas, if you're 100 radiologists at Inland Imaging, if you are thousands of radiologists, or you're an academic medical center, they all experience efficiency gains, quality gains, and reduction of fatigue. And we track and measure this very rigorously, and we've invested significantly this year in much more robust analytics. But in the average impression, a radiologist spends about 35% of their words. So just imagine that. If 35% of your words on a day-to-day basis are removed, it's no wonder why these radiologists are reporting that they have reductions in fatigue. I think about myself as a parent. I'm not a radiologist, but if you could reduce 35% of the words that I spoke to my kids on a day-to-day basis, I would be the happiest guy in the world. Who wouldn't be? All of us on this webinar, anybody who's listening has kids, just think about it. And when we look at our customers and we survey our customers, 84% of radiologists that use Rad AI Omni report reduction in fatigue. So anybody that says that radiologist reduction in fatigue is a soft benefit, sure, it might be accurate, but everybody knows it's understated. It's super important to reduce that burden on a radiologist and radiology practices. And clearly the efficiency gains are important. Also, the quality gains are important. I think sometimes people think about quality improvements with more, typical AI imaging solutions. But in 5% of all reports that RadAI Omni processes, it helps the radiologist catch a clinically significant error that they wouldn't have otherwise. It's significant, Russ. So across our partnership base, it hasn't mattered. They're all experiencing efficiency, quality, and reduction fatigue.
No, that's absolutely important. And to the point, the statistic I referenced earlier, where there was a mismatch, between findings and impressions from a study several years ago, you're not having that mismatch now. So that if referrings are truly only reading that impression, which we know some of them do, now we don't have that mismatch and that gap. So no doubt quality is improving, and the experience of the radiologist is improving as well. So this is a clear answer for how to address burnout. Thank you guys for your insights and your experiences that you shared. Lisa, at this point, I think we've gone through our main program. I don't know
Russ,
if any
can
questions.
Can I jump in and say something that is a tag on to what Josh just said?
Sure. Yes.
So I'm a practicing radiologist. We just welcomed our 5th child recently in the last couple weeks. My wife, who is a mechanical engineer by training, and as you know, kids are time consuming and expensive. And so after we had a couple of them, she stopped working as a mechanical engineer and took on the much harder job of taking care of all of our children. And so the reason I give you that background is, so what I do at work every day is talk. I talk all day into a microphone. I talk and I talk and I talk. And so historically, when I get home from work, I don't want to talk. I've talked all day long. It's all I do all day is talk into a microphone. And yet my wife, who's been home with children, wants nothing more than adult conversation, right? That's all she wanted when I got home, was to have a conversation with an adult who didn't scream back at them because they're a kid. And that sort of was like this sort of like low level underlying issue with my wife and I, is that I would get home and I'd just be burned out from talking all day. And that's what she wanted, with conversation. And since we adopted RadAI Omni, and as Josh pointed out, it's a third less words I have to speak during the day. And so I'm a lot less fatigued. And I find personally, this is a total 100% anecdote. Personally, I find that when I go home, I have more energy for those conversations. I am more invested because I just feel less worn down, less fatigued. So anyways, just a personal anecdote to add to that.
Hey, we're taking that personal anecdote, we're adding it to the website. Efficiency gains, quality gains, reduction of fatigue, improving marriages.
Yes, saves marriages, saving. But I think personally, I'm just chiming in here, that I think that's a really great anecdote, because for me personally, I'm on the phone constantly, and by the end of the day, I don't want to talk anymore. So I think that's a really great personal story and a personal testimonial to this. So I think that was great that you shared that. So we do have a couple questions, and thank you all for this conversation. I think it's been fantastic. One of our questions that came in is, have the referring doctors noticed a change, positive or negative, from RadAI generated impressions?
I can speak to that for our group. What I have noticed anecdotally is I have to do a lot fewer addendums to my reports. So one of the things that's a unique thing with RadAI Omni is it does a really good job because it's trained on your language. So when it sees something that it is not used to seeing, that it's not used to you saying, it often drops that thing to the impression, because it's kind of a little unsure, I suspect. Is this something, this is not in part of his normal language, right? So what ends up happening is, if there's a voice transcription error in the body of the report, it automatically drops that very frequently to the impression. So when I see that in the impression, I now have learned, oh, that means I made a mistake in the body. I need to go back up and fix that. So that is again, it's an anecdote, but I have seen that I have to do less addendums on my impression, because I notice those things that are being dropped down into the impression from RadAI. Now, whether that I can't speak to whether the referring physicians have noticed that or not. I do know that I get fewer emails from our administration asking for addendums for specific things.
Yeah, Lisa, just to follow up on what Dr. Smith said, I was talking to a radiology practice leader last week, and one of the things that he was sharing was because he uses Rad AI Omni and he is getting some efficiency gains, he has more time for what he considers are value-added activities, which is spending more time with that referring physician to explain things. And he was sharing that some of the feedback that he's gotten from referring physicians has been positive. Now, he wasn't specifically calling out Rad AI, but it certainly was the efficiency gains he was getting from Rad AI, which was putting him in a position to connect more with these referring physicians and these providers.
All right. So, yep, I was on mute. I asked the question, and so I'm going to do that again. All right. So, what is the first step you would take if you are part of a group that hasn't pursued automated impression generation software?
Yeah, I think there's two pathways. So one, as I mentioned earlier, we are really proud to have a partnership with 3M, and so you can certainly reach out to the incredible team, Russ and his team at 3M. You can reach out to me personally as well, and we'll make sure that we get you connected with the right Rad AI team member. And the first thing that we do is demo the platform for you so that you can see how it works and the benefits. But then the other thing that I think is unique about Rad AI is because we're not constrained by the FDA like AI imaging solutions, our product only gets better for the benefit of our partners. And I think Dr. Smits alluded to that earlier, where we took his feedback, his very thoughtful, constructive feedback, and worked to make those changes to the benefit of Dr. Smits in the practice. We're doing that all the time. And so we created this category. We created the automated impression category, and we have amazing plans to make Omni even better over the balance of this year and in 2024. And part of our demos are helping practices understand what we have planned for Omni.
Can you talk about the implementation process of Rad AI with Fluency for Imaging?
Yeah, it's always been great to have our Fluency for Imaging partners move forward for a Rad AI Omni partnership. It's incredibly simple. In fact, we did a webinar, an AI practice webinar, where we had 3 IT leaders from practices of varying size across the country, and all 3 of them said the same thing. It was the easiest implementation and deployment that they had ever experienced in their collective 100 years of the radiology practice. So, if you're doing a major PACS upgrade, if you are being forced to do another EMR upgrade, there's no excuse. You can do this. Rad AI Omni will be a very easy deployment and implementation. So it's only 2 things that we need. It's historical report data so that we can train these very customized, exact data language profiles for you, and then deploying a very lightweight client that interacts directly with the Fluency for Imaging client. So it's very, very simple, and we make it easy for our partners.
All right, great. There was another question that came in that I think we wanted to kind of circle back on that. Let's see, Kristen had asked, kind of piggybacking on what she had talked about before. Dr. Schmidt, do you want to take that and kind of expand on that?
It might be Christian. I'm not sure.
Christian, I apologize. Yes.
And it was just a comment about the efficiency gain. And of course, the radiologists, we're sensitive to when you see the efficiency gain, the fact that I can dictate something faster only translates to increased productivity. Often, if it's a forced increase in productivity, because if I have an extra 30 minutes a day, well, it only increases my productivity if I use that time and don't just use it to surf on the web, right? So what I think in my view, the ideal solution is to have a hybrid, right? Meet in the middle ground where it's going to drive increase in efficiency. And so you are going to marginally increase the productivity requirement, but that increase will be more than offset by the time savings and the fatigue savings of using that software, right? In this case, RadAI Omni. So meaning you don't have to ratchet up the productivity requirement to the maximum. You can turn it up just enough that you sort of offset that cost of RadAI Omni, and then you still get to enjoy the benefits of less fatigue and less burnout.
So let's kind of piggyback on that. Once the solutions were implemented in your practice, when did you start to see improvements in your workflow and productivity?
I mean, in my case, it was nearly immediate. Once they had my algorithm trained, when I'm dictating, I always use the example of spine MRI because it's something that's fairly straightforward, but it's just time consuming and onerous, right? Once it had my language down, it was to the point where I could just very quickly scan the impression. Yep, that's what I'd say, click sign and move to the next report. So I was seeing a pretty significant time savings right from the start. And when you add up, 20 seconds, 25 seconds might not seem like much, but when you do that 100 times a day, it adds up to quite a bit, right? So I saw that pretty much immediately.
So you alluded first when this first started that you were a little bit skeptical. I think we could say that. One of the questions that we have is, to someone who could be skeptical in implementing and using AI, what would you say to them? What are those benefits? You spoke about, even just your personal life, but benefits you've experienced firsthand.
So what I would say is you're right to be skeptical. That was when I started down this road, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we're looking at all of the AI solutions on the marketplace in radiology. I kind of went in eyes wide open, understanding that I suspect most of this stuff is not going to be quite ready for prime time. And that was proven as we went through and we evaluated product. And, we realized that the vast majority of what we were looking at just really didn't move the needle for our group. It didn't have a meaningful impact. And what we found when we used RadAI was exactly the opposite. It was the first AI solution that we evaluated where very quickly it became very apparent to everybody that used it that this does have a meaningful impact for us. It moves the needle. It makes a difference in our day. And so what I would say is you're right to be skeptical, but even despite that, you need to go and do a deeper dive and evaluate it and reach out to Josh and his team.
All right, so let's kind of go back to the title of today and kind of addressing that burnout. And with that skepticism, kind of thinking of that too. But what would you then say how this has changed that narrative for you, that burnout narrative?
Yeah, we've talked about it. I've touched on it several times, but it just feels like at the end of the day, despite having to do as much work as ever, I feel less fatigue at the end of the day. And burnout is something that is, we call it a soft metric. It's not. It's a big deal for radiologists, but it's a big deal that's really hard to pin down. Exactly what is it and why and how do you fix it? And so I don't have all of the answers, but I can tell you that in my experience, it has improved because I use this product. And at the end of the day, I am less fatigued and have more energy for the rest of my life and, my family and my kids. So I think it moves the needle. Our group, my whole group feels the same. That's why we continue to use RadAI Omni this day.
Fantastic. Russ or Josh, did you want to piggyback on that at all? Because we did get to the end of our questions. So anything else you would like to mention?
Yeah, just in closing, I want to thank Dr. Schmitz, you and Josh for joining and sharing your expertise and your experience. I mean, I think clearly the results that you've experienced are going right after this burnout topic, both in hard ROI type metrics with time savings, as well as just making you feel better each day and making you be a better husband, father, all those things that we want to be in life outside of our workplace. So thanks so much for all your contribution today and through the years.
Absolutely. And if you do want to learn a little bit more information, we do have those resources within the platform. So please feel free to take a look at those. And
E-Guide, How AI Can Help Radiologists Beat Burnout. This e-guide reviews recent burnout trends among radiologists and explores how AI can help reduce administrative burden. Overview of 3MMM0 DAL Fluency for Imaging. Learn more about our reporting solution and how it can help radiologists create higher quality diagnostic interpretations faster.
if you would like to learn more, there is a learn more button too. Let us know, and we would love to hear from you, and our team can follow up with you. And then, like I said before, we do always appreciate hearing how we did in the survey. So at the close of this webinar, if you could let us know your feedback, that would be great. So again, I want to say the same as Russ, and thank you to our speakers today. I think it was a really great conversation. We will be having another webinar in June. That registration is in the resources section as well. So if you would like to join us for our June webinar, please feel free to click on that, and we hope to see you then. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.